Today's lesson is Walking the Path of the Incas. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
Hello, I'm Kiki.
And welcome once again to our program. We're traveling in today's program through the eyes of our featured writer, Brianna, and she's describing a trip that she took to South America, to the land of the Incas, when she was just 12 years old. And we got a little bit of a history lesson to begin our lesson last time. We learned that the Incas had great engineering skills, and they were able to build Machu Picchu, which was destined to survive for centuries. It's pretty high in elevation, and it's the most famous of the Incan cities. And also it was a place for the elite to retreat to. That's what people think. They're not, of course, entirely sure. And it was built with both beauty and durability in mind. It was built to last.
Right. And despite its altitude, Machu Picchu was a place that was easily accessed by a lot of people, even back in the day. But now in modern day, you can get there by rail or by bus. But if you really wanted to challenge yourself, you can hike the Inca Trail.
Right. If you're intrepid, if you're brave and adventurous, you can hike the Inca Trail. Lots of people want to do that. Of course, it's an iconic trail in the world. Lots of people want to check it out. So let's learn more about Machu Picchu in today's program. Let's listen to the first part and find out about our writer's trip there back in 2011.
In 2011, my family signed up for a group tour consisting of a 4-day, 3-night backpacking trip along the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. Accompanied by a guide and other tourists, as well as porters who helped carry the group's equipment, we encountered numerous llamas, several other Incan sites, and far too many stairways over the course of the journey.
大家好。第一部分我们来介绍片语 sign up for 名词，它的意思是报名某课程、活动或是组织。例如 I decided to sign up for the cooking class to improve my culinary skills. 我决定报名厨艺课程以提升我的烹饪技巧。又或者说 To access the library resources, you must sign up for a membership. 要使用图书馆资源，你必须申请成为会员。接下来介绍 accompany 这个动词，意思是陪同、陪伴或是伴随。例如 Edward wants to accompany me on the business trip in order to see me give the sales presentation. Edward 想陪我出差，以便看我示范销售。又或者说 At this restaurant, French fries always accompany sandwiches and burgers. 在这家餐厅，三明治和汉堡通常附有薯条。下一个介绍 encounter 这个单字，它是动词，表示偶然遇到、邂逅或是遭遇问题或是困难。例如 The would-be thief encountered a guard dog when he entered the building. 这位偷窃未遂的小偷要进入大楼时，遇到了一只看门狗。或是 Mason encountered resistance to his idea at the board meeting. Mason 的想法在董事会会议上遭到反对。
Okay, so in 2011, my family signed up for a group tour consisting of a 4-day, 3-night backpacking trip along the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. So our writer Brianna talks about her family's trip in 2011, and they signed up for a group tour. So this group tour took them on a couple nights trip, and their final destination was Machu Picchu. Okay, so here we have this phrase, sign up for. And basically, when you sign up for something, you are putting your name onto a list because you want to participate in something. You are letting them know that I want to join this trip, or I want to sign up for the basketball team. You want to participate in a particular activity. And in this case, it was the trail, the Inca Trail, that brings them to Machu Picchu.
Right. They signed up for this tour. They registered for it. They made preparations to participate in this tour. They probably contacted a travel agent, and the travel agent made all the arrangements. It's a 4-day trip, and it's 3 nights, so I suppose they had to bring along their sleeping bags and maybe some tents or something like that. And, of course, this trail would eventually lead to Machu Picchu. Now, accompanied by a guide and other tourists, as well as porters who helped carry the group's equipment, we encountered numerous llamas, several other Incan sites, and far too many stairways over the course of the journey. So this sentence here gives us a lot of information. First of all, Brianna's family were accompanied by a guide and other tourists. So here we've got accompany, which means somebody goes with you or something else goes with something else. For example, if you go see maybe a violin sonata, the violinist may be accompanied by somebody playing the piano. They're playing together, and in this particular case, they went with a guide and other tourists, so they probably made friends with people from all over the world. And they also had porters on their trip.
A porter is basically a person whose job is to carry luggage or other items, and you'll usually see porters at railway stations, airports, or hotels. So an example sentence could be, as soon as the train stopped, the porters immediately began unloading the cargo train. So in this case, they had porters that were able to help carry the group's equipment. As the group is traveling through the Inca Trail, everyone's carrying a lot of things, but you might need some specific equipment that helps you through this hike, along the hike, so the porters would carry it for them. And equipment is basically things that are necessary or items that might be necessary to do a certain thing or for a certain purpose or to complete a particular task. So they might have needed special equipment to walk this Inca Trail.
Right, maybe hiking sticks. And of course, when they camped out, they needed tents and things like that, things for campfires or whatever. And be careful with this word equipment because it is a non-count noun. So you cannot add an S to this. It is forbidden. It's similar to the word furniture. You don't add an S to that word either, even though you could count those individual items. But there are just too many of them to keep track of, so we consider it a non-count noun. So the porters who were responsible for the equipment had to carry it for the hikers here. And along the path, they encountered various things. Now, to encounter something just means to come across something, to meet something.
That's right. On their trail, they encountered numerous llamas. Llamas are a type of animal. They're from the camel family, and they are found in the Andes region. So they're known for their soft, woolly fleece. And I know a lot of people think llamas are adorable and they just want to go up to them and hug them. But you have to be careful because llamas are also known to spit on you if you are annoying them.
Watch out for that. And llamas, of course, is similar to alpacas, which I believe are also from that part of the world. So they came across llamas and other Incan sites, maybe some other structures or something like that. And, of course, they came across far too many stairways. Of course, sometimes when the elevator isn't working, we need to take the stairs or to walk on the stairway, which can be quite tiring. But if you're trying to hike up to that elevation, you are going to have to go up thousands of steps. And here, of course, our writer kind of makes it sound like it was a burden. Oh, we came across way too many stairways. I would rather have taken the elevator to the top, but they don't have that. Okay, we're at the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's go on now to the second part.
The most difficult aspects of the 40-kilometer trail were its endless steep slopes and high elevation, which reached up to 4,200 meters above sea level. At those heights, breathing becomes more difficult, and altitude sickness is common, so we drank coca tea in the mornings and chewed coca leaves as we hiked to combat altitude sickness.
第二部分介绍名词 elevation， 表示海拔或是高地。例如 Hiking at high elevations can be exhausting due to lower levels of oxygen in the air. 在高海拔健行可能会因为空气含氧量较低而感到非常疲累。也可以说 The map shows the elevation of different parts of the city. 该地图显示出该市不同部分的海拔高度。再来我们看到 combat， 它也可以念作 combat。这个动词指的是制止、打击或是与点搏斗。举例来说 ，Extra guards patrol the border to combat drug trafficking。为了打击毒品走私，加派了卫兵巡逻边境。又或者说 Elsa has worked hard to combat her fear of public speaking, using various techniques to overcome it. Elsa 一直努力与公开演讲的恐惧搏斗，她使用各种技巧来克服它。
All right, we're back. The most difficult aspects of the 40-kilometer trail were its endless steep slopes and high elevation, which reached up to 4,200 meters above sea level. Okay, so this trail, this Inca trail, it's not an easy thing to do. So we remember from part 1 yesterday, we talked about the 40-kilometer trail. Although it seems like it's short, but it's actually quite difficult to do. There were endless steep slopes. So there were lots of slopes that were very steep, which means it's at a very sharp angle. So when you're walking it, it might be very tough. And because of the altitude or the high elevation, which reached up to 4,200 meters above sea level, this makes it very hard for people to breathe sometimes when you're at a high elevation. So what is elevation? It is basically the height above something or something that is increased. Their level has been increased. They're very high up. So, for example, the elevation of Mount Everest is 8,840 meters, which is considered the highest point on Earth.
We're talking about how high something is, that's your elevation. And that reminds me, of course, of the word elevator, which is what you take in a building to get to a higher floor. You're inside a box and it goes up and down. That's an elevator. Whereas a moving staircase is called an escalator. So, of course, they had to go up this high elevation to over 4,000 meters above sea level. And at those heights, breathing becomes more difficult, and altitude sickness is common, so we drank coca tea in the mornings and chewed coca leaves as we hiked to combat altitude sickness. That does happen sometimes when you climb to higher elevations. That happened to me one time when I was in university. I went to Colorado with a friend, and we hiked in the mountains there, and I did get altitude sickness. I puked my guts out.
Okay, so here we see that they drank coca tea, which is a local type of herb that has a good use for fighting altitude sickness, and it's something that the locals have used for many, many years, probably hundreds of years. So it's a bit like Chinese traditional medicine, things that we find in nature that can help us. Okay, so they chewed as well. So not only did they drink the tea, they also chewed the coca leaves. And when you chew something, it is to bite the food or to bite something in your mouth. In this case, they're biting the coca leaves in their mouth. And sometimes it's to make it easier to swallow. Sometimes if you chew something, you can have the essence of what's in the leaves or the chemicals that are in the leaves. If you chew it, it'll come out and you can swallow the liquid that comes out and then spit out the leaves. So in Taiwan, we've seen a lot of people chew betel nuts. Mm-hmm. So they're chewing the betel nuts and they're swallowing whatever's inside, but they actually spit out the thing that they're actually chewing.
Right. When you chew something, of course, you don't swallow it. So you can chew betel nut or you can chew gum or dogs can chew on bones. You get the idea here. And this is one way to combat altitude sickness. To fight it, you chew on those coca leaves in order to feel better so that you don't throw up because of altitude sickness. Okay, we're at the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to the third and final part.
On the fourth and final day of the trek, we woke before dawn and watched the sun rise over the ancient city. It was a truly magical sight. After that, we spent the rest of the day learning the history of the ruins with our guide and watching llamas roam over the hills. Though I was only 12 years old at the time, I remember every part of the adventure and hope to return someday to watch the sunrise over Machu Picchu once again.
第三部分介绍名词 trek， 它的意思是艰苦的行程或是长途跋涉。我们可以说 On their trek, they encountered various wildlife species. 在他们的旅途中，他们遇到了各种野生动物。也可以说 The boys took a trek through the valley to reach the river they wanted to fish at. 男孩们长途跋涉，穿过山谷，到达他们想去钓鱼的河流。最后看到 roam， 这个动词的意思是四处走动、游荡或是漫步，也可以是在点点点漫步的意思。例如 Bears are known to roam these forests, so be careful when you are hiking. 众所周知，熊会在这几片森林中走动，所以健行时要小心。最后一个例子 Beth roamed the conference hall in search of coffee and a quiet place to recharge. Beth 在会议厅里四处闲逛，好寻找咖啡和安静的休息场所。
Okay, we wrap things up now in the third part of our lesson for today. On the fourth and final day of the trek, we woke before dawn and watched the sun rise over the ancient city, which must have been quite a sight to see. Now, here we've got the word trek, T-R-E-K, which is an unusual spelling for words in English. Usually you're going to see T-R-E-C-K, but it just means a very long journey from one place to another. And of course, if you're traveling to various parts of the world, you might go on a trek. If you go to Thailand or if you go to Myanmar, for example, you might go on a trek into the mountains to meet some of the indigenous people there and stay with them and have a good time and stuff like that. You might go on a trek. And so here they had a trek to Machu Picchu, and on the fourth and final day, they were treated to the sunrise, which they watched over the ancient city. Ooh.
It was a truly magical sight. So seeing this, it was so magical. It was just fantastic. It's unbelievable. You can't believe that it's real. And it was just a magical sight. After that, we spent the rest of the day learning the history of the ruins with our guide and watching llamas roam over the hills. So after they arrived to the ancient city, they just took it easy during the rest of the day. They learned more about the history of the ruins or what's left over of this city. They learned it from their guide and they watched llamas roam. So roam is basically to move around or walk around, travel around without a goal or destination. So in this case, they're watching the llamas just walk around aimlessly, probably standing around with each other, eating grass and things like that. They're just roaming over the hills. So I can imagine for a 12-year-old, it must be really cool to see llamas right in front of you and with such a beautiful ancient city as its backdrop.
Indeed. So, of course, if you travel overseas with your cell phone, it might roam around to get local networks. And when you come back to Taiwan, you might have to pay roaming charges. That's what that means. You just kind of move from place to place without any direct pattern. And indeed, the llamas were roaming over the hills. That's what llamas do. They never really know where they're going. They're just looking for grass and things like that. So they're just kind of wandering over the hills. And yes, this must have been a really magical sight for young Brianna here. Of course, they got to watch the sunrise over Machu Picchu. It was magical. They got some great pictures. They probably posted them online. And then, of course, what is a trip without a history lesson? So, of course, they learned about the history of the ruins with their guide. The guide, of course, gave them some information about those ruins. And though I was only 12 years old at the time, I remember every part of the adventure and hope to return someday to watch the sunrise over Machu Picchu once again. Notice here that sunrise is two words because she's talking about the process. I'm going to watch the sun rise. You could say sunrise as one word. You could say I'm going to watch the sunrise. I'm going to watch the sun rise. And of course, you could say the opposite for the sunset. I'm going to watch the sunset. I'm going to watch the sun set. That would be two words there. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分提到，这条40公里古道最困难的地方在于无止境的陡坡和高海拔，高度可达海拔4200公尺。那文中它用到 up to 可以用来表达多达什么什么，高达什么什么，后面通常会接表示数字啊、数量等等的名词。那这边也补充一下 up to 的其他用法。第一个，我们用事物当主词的时候， something be up to somebody 可以表达什么什么是某人的责任，由某人来决定。像 it's up to you 就可以表达由你决定，你决定就好。好，那第二个用法是以人当主词的时候， somebody be up to 加上名词或动名词，可以呈现两种意思。一个意思是表达某人有能力做某事，有能力去处理或执行某事。例如 Do you think they are up to the challenge？你认为他们有办法应付那个挑战吗？那么 something be up to 加上名词或动名词的另外一个意思是表达某人在计划某事，偷偷做某事，尤其是不好的事情。像有一个用语说 up to no good 就可以表达图谋不轨的意思咯。好，第三个用法是 up to 可以用来表达跟 until 差不多的语义，像 up to yesterday 直到昨天， up to this point 是表达到此刻为止，到目前为止。再来课文第三部分有一句写到After that, we spent the rest of the day learning the history of the ruins. 那这边我们要复习一下动词 spend 的用法。spend 表示花费，那它通常是以人为主词，用来表达花费时间啊、金钱、精力等等。那么句型会是 somebody spend 加上时间、金钱或精力，然后后面可以接 on 加名词，或者是接动名词。举例来说， I try not to spend too much time and energy on social media. 我尽量不花太多时间精力在社群媒体上。好，那补充一下，如果是以事物当主词，要表达说某事物花了某人多少时间，或是花了某人多少金钱，那这时候分别会用 cost 和 take 来表达。我们先来看看 cost 这个动词，它表示价钱为多少，或是花费多少金钱，那必须用事物来当主词。常用的句型就会是 something cost somebody 加上金额，或者是something cost 加上金额，可以表达某物花了某人多少钱，某物要多少钱这样。举例来说， The dress costs $800， 那件洋装要价$800。好，那至于要表达某事物花了某人多少时间精力，则常常会用到动词 take 来表达。take 它是表达花费或是需要，像是花费时间、精力等等。那常见的句型是 something take 加上 time or effort， 也可以说 it takes time or effort 再加不定词 to v。 举例来说， Good work takes time 是表达好的作品需要时间。 It takes a lot of time and effort to master a foreign language， 要精通外国语言需要花费很多的时间精力。好，那以上见重点整理，我们来回顾见单字吧。
Accompany. Mary asked her friend Wanda to accompany her to the concert. Equipment. The team unloaded their equipment and set up tents for the night. Encounter. During his hike, Mike encountered a family of deer walking through the meadow. Chew. Be sure to chew your food well to make it easier to digest. Combat. To combat the increase in litter, the city has raised fines on those caught littering. Trek. After months of planning, she set out on a challenging trek through rugged mountains. Roam. Kelly likes to roam through the fields outside of town, enjoying the peace of the countryside.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. Would you like to hike the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, or would you prefer to visit the site by rail or bus?
Given the option, I'd rather go there by hiking the Inca Trail because that's just an amazing opportunity and to see the llamas. I love llamas. But I think I might just hike one way and then take the bus or the train to go back, to leave the city.
Sounds interesting. Well, if I had to go to Machu Picchu, I'd probably take the trail because of the physical challenge. But if I were to go to Peru, I'd probably hang out in Lima for most of the time because I do speak some Spanish and I would really love to intermingle with the Peruvian people and have some great conversations and eat their food and drink their wine and have a heck of a time.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Kiki.
I am Roger.
See you next time.